This story was sent to me by a man named Aaron, who once worked with his state's volunteer search and rescue unit. His story is something he says he will never forget. Not because of what he witnessed himself, but because of what he heard, and what was later found among the ashes of a burned-out car in the middle of nowhere. He asked me to change his real name and the names of a few others involved for safety reasons. Even now, he isn't sure who or what was responsible for what they found that night. This is the full account of what he claims actually happened. My name is Aaron, and back in 2018, I volunteered for a small search and rescue group in rural Oregon. Most of our calls were routine missing hikers, injured campers, elderly people who had wandered too far from their homes. But one night in October, we received a call that instantly felt different. At 2:14 a.m., our department phone started blowing up. A passing trucker on Highway 46 reported seeing a vehicle on fire deep inside one of the forest access roads. He said it didn't look like an accident. No skid marks, no other cars, just a single sedan parked perfectly straight, engulfed in flames. The fire department was dispatched. We were asked to assist in case someone had run off wounded into the woods. When we reached the forest road, the entire sky above the trees was glowing orange. You could smell the burning rubber long before you could see the car. I remember stepping out of our truck and feeling uneasy. It wasn't just because the car was burning. It was because it was silent. No forest sounds, no insects, nothing. The firefighters were already putting out the flames when we walked up. The fire captain told us something immediately disturbing. "There's no one inside the car," he said, "and no sign of anyone who walked away. The driver's door was wide open, backseat empty, trunk closed, no keys, no luggage, no footprints leading away. Just the burned-out skeleton of a car in the middle of a pitch-black forest." We started our search. I was paired with another volunteer named Mark. We were tasked with sweeping the woods directly behind the burned vehicle. Flashlights cutting through the darkness. No wind, no movement. Just that strange, heavy silence. 10 minutes into our walk, my radio crackled. Our team lead said, "We found a phone." I remember stopping in my tracks. A phone? Where? We regrouped back at the car. One of the firefighters was holding it carefully with gloved hands. The phone was melted on one side, but somehow not destroyed. The screen was cracked but still faintly lit. Most of the apps didn't work, but the video gallery did. And there, at the top of the camera roll, was a single video file, time-stamped 1 hour before the car was found burning. The file name was auto-generated, VID10290228. The captain looked at us and said, "You're gonna want to hear this." He pressed play. At first, all we heard was the sound of someone walking fast over gravel. Footsteps crunching, heavy breathing. Then the camera flipped up and we saw a young man's face, sweaty, terrified, eyes darting around at something behind the camera. "If someone finds this, I think something's after me," he said, whispering harshly. "I don't know what it is. I just saw something on the road. It wasn't human." My stomach dropped. Behind him was the interior of the same car, now sitting burned and empty in front of us. He kept glancing at the rear seat, as if expecting someone or something to sit up from behind him. He said his name was Kyle. He said he was driving home from a late work shift when he noticed something standing in the middle of the forest road. At first, he thought it was a deer, but when his headlights hit it, he saw what he described as a tall, gray shape with long arms and no face. When he tried to reverse, his car stalled. When he tried to call 911, his phone kept glitching. So he started recording. The video suddenly erupted with a loud thud, the entire car shaking violently, as if something had landed on the roof. Kyle screamed and dropped the phone. The camera angle shifted to the floor of the car. All you could see were his legs panicking, kicking the driver's door open as he ran into the forest. There were more noises. Branches snapping, something chasing him. The video lasted almost 5 minutes. And then, the last 10 seconds are what still keep me awake some nights. Kyle was hiding behind a tree, breathing hard. He whispered, "I don't hear it anymore. Maybe it's gone?" And then, from off-screen, in a voice that sounded almost like a person but not quite, came a quiet whisper, "I found you." a bone-chilling scream, a violent shaking of the camera, then static. The video ended. We stood there frozen. Even the firefighters, usually desensitized to horrific scenes, looked disturbed. No one spoke for a full minute. Finally, our team lead exhaled and said, "All right, fan out. We're finding this kid." We searched until sunrise. We found no footprints, no clothing, no blood, no sign that anyone had ever run through those woods at all. And we definitely didn't find Kyle. But at around 6:40 a.m., 6 hours after the car was found burning, we found something else. Something that made every person there quietly pack up and leave the forest without a word. We found another burned patch of ground deeper in the woods, perfectly circular, the center still hot, and right in the middle of the ash was a single human tooth. We marked the burned circle with tape and notified the sheriff's department, but everyone in the search team felt the same thing. We needed to get out of the woods. Now, we regrouped at the trailhead where our vehicles were parked. Dawn was just beginning to break, but the early light didn't bring any comfort. Everyone moved fast, quietly, almost avoiding eye contact with one another. When you do this job long enough, you learn there's a specific kind of silence people make when they've seen something that doesn't fit into the world they understand. That was the silence we were all carrying. The firefighters loaded up their gear. My partner Mark came over to me, his face pale, and said, "Aaron, that voice in the video, that wasn't human. It sounded like something trying to be human. He wasn't wrong. That voice, the way it dragged the words, the way it mimicked emotion without having any, it didn't sound like anything from this world." But the part that bothered me the most was the burning. The car had burned completely. And whatever happened to that circular patch of ground in the woods, that was burned too. Fire usually has a source of fuel, a trigger. This didn't. And that tooth in the ashes, it didn't show signs of charring. It was clean, too clean, like it didn't belong there. Our team dispersed. We were told to write formal reports, but to leave out the video until police took custody of the phone. But as we were all getting into our vehicles, something unexpected happened. The captain of the fire crew came running toward us, waving one arm and shouting, "Hey, wait, stop." We all froze. He reached us out of breath and held up his phone. "You guys aren't going to believe this," he said. He pulled up a photo, a blown-up screenshot from the video we watched earlier. It showed the interior of Kyle's car the exact moment before the roof was struck by something, but the captain had zoomed in on the rear passenger window, and there, hardly visible in the dark reflection, was something behind the glass. Something tall, something long, something standing right outside his car. It had no face, just a smooth, pale shape where a head should have been. And yet somehow, it looked like it was staring directly into the lens. Mark immediately turned away from the screen, muttering, "Nope. Nope." And everyone was rattled. Whoever, or whatever, was in that woods with Kyle, it wasn't human, and it wanted him. By 8 a.m., we were sitting in the sheriff's office, each giving statements. They took the phone into evidence and pulled the video file for analysis. No one wanted to watch it again, but the lead detective insisted. As we sat around the table, the detective paused the video at certain frames, scribbling notes. But the strangest moment came when the detective asked the tech guy, "Can you clean up the audio at the end?" That voice. The tech nodded and opened his software. He isolated the last 10 seconds of the clip, the part where Kyle whispered that he didn't hear it anymore. Then the voice. "I found you." He boosted the audio, filtered the background, sharpened the frequencies. The room was dead silent. Everyone leaned forward. He played it again. But now, it was worse. The voice was clearer, colder, less like a whisper, more like something speaking directly into the microphone. Slow crawling, almost playful. "IFOUNDYOU." A chill ran through every person in the room. The detective swallowed hard. "What the hell is that?" But the tech wasn't done. "I'm going to isolate the background," he said. "What background?" the sheriff asked. The tech didn't answer. He tapped a few keys, then replayed just the ambient noise behind the voice. At first, it sounded like static, white noise. But then, there was a second voice, barely audible, layered under the first like an echo, and it said, "Behind you." Every hair on my arm stood up. The detective froze, hand over his mouth. Mark whispered, "Jesus Christ." The tech spun in his chair. "That second voice wasn't Kyle," he said quietly. "And it wasn't an echo." "What do you mean?" the sheriff asked. The tech clicked a spectrograph, a visual map showing the frequency patterns of the two voices, and the lines for the second voice weren't normal. They didn't curve, didn't fluctuate, didn't have the shape human voices make. It was just a jagged, unnatural speak. "I don't think that second voice came from something in front of him," the tech said. "It came from right next to the microphone." That meant whatever said "behind you" was standing right beside the phone, while Kyle crouched behind that tree. But it didn't touch him. It didn't attack. It waited. Around noon, something new happened. A woman walked into the sheriff's office, wrapped in a heavy green jacket, shaking like she'd been out in the cold all night. Her name was Lydia, and she said she had information about the burned car. They brought her into the interview room, and through the glass window we watched her sit down. She was jittery, eyes darting around like someone who expected something to burst through the door at any moment. The sheriff asked her what she saw. She didn't answer at first. She kept staring down at her hands. Mud under her fingernails, knuckles scraped raw. Then she said quietly, "I saw him. The boy in the woods." I leaned forward in my seat. She said she had been camping alone farther up the same forest road. Around 2 a.m. she heard a loud metal banging sound, a car door slamming repeatedly. She stepped out of her tent and saw glow through the trees. At first she thought someone was shining a spotlight, but as she got closer, she realized it was fire, the burning car. And then, something else. She said she saw Kyle running between the trees. She shouted to him, asking if he needed help, but he didn't hear her. He just kept running, looking over his shoulder again and again. So Lydia followed him, trying not to get lost, until suddenly she saw movement behind him, not running, not chasing, just following, a tall, thin figure in the darkness. No face, no features, just long limbs, a human-like shape, and a pale head. She described it in the exact same words Kyle used in the video. "Did it chase him?" the sheriff asked. Lydia shook her head violently. "No, it didn't need to." "What do you mean?" She finally looked up. It moved without moving, like it was suddenly closer. Every time he looked away, it gained distance. The sheriff stared at her. "Where did they go?" he asked. Her eyes welled with tears. "They went into the trees, and then I heard him scream." She wiped her face with her sleeve, and after that, I heard something laughing. We all exchanged horrified glances. Laughter? Nothing in those woods should have been laughing. Nothing human anyway. Before the sheriff could ask another question, Lydia suddenly reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out something small. She placed it on the desk. "A SIM card. I found this," she said. "I think it's from the boy's phone." The sheriff picked it up using gloves and sealed it in an evidence bag. But then Lydia said one last thing, a sentence that made my entire body feel cold from the inside out. She leaned forward slowly and whispered, "It's still there. And it knows you're looking for him?" Lydia's warning hung in the air long after she left the sheriff's office. "It's still there, and it knows you're looking for him." Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but we were all thinking the same thing. Something in those woods didn't want to be found, and it definitely didn't want us finding the truth. The sheriff suspended all search operations until daylight the next morning. But before we left, he said something that stuck with me. "Whatever did that to the car, it's not done. This isn't over." The new evidence, the SIM card Lydia found, was rushed to the tech room. Normally, a SIM doesn't store much. Contacts, messages, but sometimes it retains fragments of data. We sat around the tech's desk while he inserted it into a reader. Nothing happened at first. Then, a single file loaded, a corrupted audio file labeled REC0713LAST. The tech frowned. "This wasn't on the phone we recovered. This is something else." He hit play. A burst of static filled the speakers. Then wind. Heavy breathing. Footsteps crunching through leaves. Kyle's voice, shakier than before. "If anyone finds this, please don't come looking for me. I don't know what this thing is. A rustling sound in the background. It moves when I don't look at it. I tried to hide, but it whispers in my head. There was a long stretch of silence, then something else, a deep, low clicking sound, like bones tapping together. Then Kyle screamed, "Oh no, get away from me." Explosion of static, but the recording didn't end. That was the worst part. After Kyle's scream faded, another sound replaced it. A slow, steady breathing. Not human breathing. Too long, too deep, too deliberate. Like an imitation. Then, in a voice that was so close to the speakers, it sounded like it was breathing against our necks. F-O-U-N-D-O-U. Everyone in the room recoiled. The tech muted the speaker instantly. He looked like he wanted to unplug the whole system. "That wasn't Kyle," he said quietly. "That was whatever was with him." The sheriff stood up, pacing and rubbing the back of his neck. "We're dealing with something that mimics, something that follows, something that doesn't burn." He was right. The car burned. The ground burned. But that tooth in the ashes didn't burn. And neither did the thing in the video reflection. Later that afternoon, one of the rangers radioed in saying they had found something in the woods. A motion-activated trail camera knocked out of position and smashed into a tree trunk like something hit it with force. The SD card was still inside. We brought it into the tech room, and this time, the sheriff told him, "Load everything. Unedited. All of it." The tech nodded and opened the files. There were normal clips. Deer, squirrels, branches swaying. Then, at 1:38 a.m., a new clip began. The camera, obviously damaged, strained to focus in the dark. But as the image sharpened, we saw movement. A figure, walking through the trees. Everyone went dead silent. The figure was tall. Too tall. Slender. But its proportions were wrong. Arms too long, legs bending unnaturally as it walked without sound. Its head was pale, smooth, no face. It stopped, turned, and stared directly at the camera. Even without eyes, it felt like it was looking straight through us. Then the camera glitched, static tearing across the screen like claws. When the image returned, the figure was only a few feet from the lens, motionless, facing the camera, unblinking. Its neck slowly tilted to the side, cracking like broken branches. Then, the camera flew sideways as if something struck it with immense force. The clip ended. No footsteps, no sounds, no retreat. Just gone. The sheriff clenched his jaw. "That thing isn't hunting," he said. "It's watching." He turned to us. "And it knows we're watching it." Around 6 p.m., the tech made a discovery. He filtered through more corrupted data on the SIM card and found another fragment, only 2 seconds long. He isolated it and played it. A whisper. But this time, not a threat. A warning. It said, "Don't look at it." The voice was human. A woman. The sheriff froze. "Replay that." The tech did. Again and again. A woman's voice, whispering urgently, "Don't look at it." "Who is that?" the sheriff asked. The tech shrugged. "It's not Kyle. And it's definitely not that thing." Then Mark, who had been quiet most of the day, suddenly stepped closer to the speaker. "That's Lydia," he said. We all turned to him. "You're sure?" the sheriff asked. Mark nodded slowly. "I'd recognize her voice. She said the exact same thing when we walked her out earlier today. A chill rolled down my spine. So Lydia was in the woods with Kyle before he died. But if she warned him, why didn't she call for help? Why didn't she bring him back?" And then a more disturbing question. If Lydia was so terrified, why did she go back into the woods to get his SIM card? Nothing added up. The sheriff began reviewing her interview footage again. And that's when he noticed something that made his eyes widen. "Pause that," he said. We all leaned forward. The footage showed Lydia sitting in the interview room. But something was off. Her jacket sleeves were too big. Her movements too slow. Her head always tilted at the same unnatural angle. "Zoom in," the sheriff said. The tech zoomed in on her neck, on her skin, and we saw it. A strange shadow, like a bruise, running up the left side of her neck to her jawline. Not a wound, not makeup, more like her skin wasn't sitting right. Mark stepped back so fast his chair nearly fell. Oh my God, that wasn't her. No one in the room spoke for a full 10 seconds because we all realized the same horrifying truth. The woman who walked into the station, the one who spoke to us, the one who handed us that SIM card, may not have been human. The sheriff replayed the interview footage again and again, each time noticing more things we had missed the first time. Lydia's shoulders barely rose when she breathed. Her eyes blinked too slowly. Her hands never stopped trembling, but not like someone who was scared, more like someone struggling to imitate human movement, or something wearing a human shape. And then there was the shadow. That dark trail up her neck wasn't a bruise. It wasn't dirt. It was a seam, a place where something underneath didn't line up with the skin it was wearing. The hell did we let into this building? The sheriff muttered under his breath. Mark swallowed hard. Sheriff, when she came in, she wouldn't look directly at any of us. The tech nodded. It didn't want to copy facial expressions. It wouldn't know how. I felt my stomach twisting. So what are you saying? I asked quietly. That this thing killed Lydia and used her face. No one had to answer. We all knew. The sheriff paced for several seconds before he finally stopped and said, "Lock this building down. No one leaves alone. No one goes outside. And we're reviewing every damn second of security footage from today." So we split up. Mark and I were assigned to check the hall cams. The tech scanned for corrupted digital signatures. The sheriff watched the front entrance footage. 10 minutes into reviewing the security feeds, Mark suddenly reached out and grabbed my arm. "There. Go back. Play back that." I dragged the video back 3 seconds. The hallway was empty. Then, Lydia walked into frame. Except, she didn't walk. She stuttered into the frame. 1 second, the hallway was empty. The next second, she was standing there. No footsteps, no approach. Just appearing, like the camera glitched, but only when she entered. Her posture was stiff, almost marionette-like. Her head tilted, her fingers twitching, but the most horrifying detail, her reflection. On the linoleum floor, her reflection looked different. Her reflection's head was turned toward the camera, but her real head was not. Mark pushed so far back in his chair that he hit the wall. "Oh my God, oh my God. Turn it off." I paused the frame, my hand shaking. "What the hell is that?" I whispered. No answer, just silence. At that same moment from down the hall, the sheriff shouted, "Everyone, my office, now." We ran down the hallway and crowded around his monitor. He pointed at the footage from the station's front entrance, recorded just 20 minutes ago. Lydia was walking out, but again, her reflection didn't match. As she stepped into the parking lot, the camera shook violently, glitching with heavy static. When the view stabilized, Lydia was no longer in the frame, not walking away, not in the parking lot, just gone. And then came the worst part. The tech, eyes wide, leaned forward and froze the frame. "Look." We looked. Across the street, at the edge of the tree line, stood a tall, pale figure, completely still, directly facing the station. Even with no eyes, we could tell it was watching. The sheriff didn't blink, didn't breathe. "That thing was in here," he whispered. "It walked through our hallways, sat in our interrogation room, and we didn't even know." We gathered in the meeting room, lights dimmed, everyone shaken. That's when the tech came in with something new. I found more data in the SIM card. A text message draft, unsent. He held up his tablet. It was from Lydia's phone. The message said, "It copies voices. It copies faces. It only needs to see you once." A second draft message, "Don't follow the screams. They're not real." And then the most chilling one, "If it whispers your name, don't answer." Mark spoke in a trembling voice. "She warned us. She tried." But the sheriff shook his head. That wasn't Lydia writing those drafts. We all looked at him. "No human leaves unsent drafts like that," he said. His voice dropped lower. "That was written by someone who didn't want her words going through. Someone who was trying to hide from the thing using her face." The chill that swept through the room was bone deep. Against every instinct, the sheriff decided we had to find Lydia's real body. If she was still alive, we owed it to her. If she wasn't, we needed to know. We geared up, armed with more than flashlights this time. The sheriff took a shotgun. Mark carried flare rounds. I carried the thermal camera. We headed toward the forest access road where the burned car was found. The deeper we went, the colder it became. The forest felt wrong. Too still, too breathless, like everything living had already run. Half a mile in, the sheriff raised his hand, signaling us to stop. "Do not look directly ahead," he whispered. "Look at the ground." I felt my heart slam in my chest. "Why?" I whispered. "Because something is standing in front of us." I didn't want to look, but I did. Not at eye level, at the ground, and that's when I saw them. Two long, thin shadows, unmoving, not ours. The sheriff slowly pulled out a flare and lit it. Red light filled the trees, and there, standing 20 feet away, was the figure from the videos. Tall, colorless, faceless. Its skin stretched too tightly over its long bones. It didn't blink, didn't breathe. It just tilted its head at us, making a long, wet, cracking sound, like a neck being forced past its limits. Mark whispered, "Don't look at it, don't look at it, don't look at it." But then it spoke, in Lydia's voice, perfectly copied. "Help me." My blood turned to ice, because that wasn't a scream we heard. It wasn't a cry for help. It was bait. The sheriff didn't hesitate. "Back, move." But the thing moved faster than anything I've ever seen. Vanished, a flicker, like a glitch in the air. Not running, not jumping, just disappearing. And then, something whispered directly behind my ear. Ah, or N. My row froze. Every muscle locked. "Do not answer. Do not look. Do not turn around," the sheriff yelled. My heartbeat was so loud it drowned everything out. For a full 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then the whisper came again. "I found you, not from behind, from everywhere." The sheriff fired a blast into the trees. Mark shot a flare into the sky. The light burst through the canopy, and the forest exploded in movement. Branches snapping, leaves shaking, something sprinting away. Fast, too fast. Then, silence. Total silence. The sheriff looked at me, breathing hard. "You okay?" I nodded slowly, even though my hands were shaking violently. Mark swallowed and whispered, "It knows your name." We decided to push forward another 200 yards. If the creature had taken Lydia, it would have dragged her deeper into the woods. But nothing could have prepared us for what we found. A clearing. Circular. Blackened. Burned. Just like the one where we found the tooth. Except this one had something else in the center. Something upright. Something covered in ash. Something that looked like a body. The sheriff raised his shotgun, and Mark moved in close. I scanned with the thermal camera, but the shape emitted no heat. Dead. Long dead. As we approached, it became clearer. It was a woman's body. Blackened. Melted into the earth. Lydia. Her face was twisted upward, mouth open, as if she had died screaming. I felt sick. Mark whispered, "That thing, it burned her. It burned her like the car." The sheriff knelt beside what was left of her and noticed something clutched in her hand. A piece of paper, burned around the edges. He carefully pulled it free, and written on it, in shaky ink, were the last words Lydia ever wrote. "It wears you." The next few seconds in the recording were almost silent, except for the faint crackling of leaves and something else. Something like breathing. Not human breathing, more like air passing through a hollow tube, dry, rattling, uneven. Arun, now trembling, whispered, "If someone is breathing like that, they're dying." But it didn't sound like someone dying. It sounded like something waiting. The recording suddenly picked up a metallic clank, as if Rahul was dragging something, maybe the old car jack from the trunk. Then came Rahul's voice again, cracked with panic. "I see it. I see it again. It's not human. If I don't come back, I'm sorry." His voice broke. His breathing hitched. Then, a thud. A loud, heavy thud against the car door, followed by a low whisper from outside. "Ga'anam," drawn out, distorted, as if underwater. Arun and I froze. That wasn't Rahul. That wasn't anything human. The whisper repeated, softer, closer. "Ga'anam." I didn't know the meaning. I didn't want to know. Rahul screamed. Not a short scream, a long, blood-curdling one that sounded like someone being lifted off the ground. The phone dropped. We heard it tumble into the grass. And then, A new sound filled the recording. A deep, snapping sound. Bone. Human bone. Rahul's scream cut off instantly. The recording ended there. Aaron's face had gone white. He wasn't reacting anymore, just in staring at the screen. I thought he was in shock, but then his expression changed slowly. He tilted his head. His mouth parted slightly. His eyes moved unnaturally, darting around the garage as if following invisible movement. "Bro, what are you looking at?" I asked. He didn't answer. He whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. "It's here." Those 2 words shattered every bit of courage I had. Before I could even respond, Aaron grabbed the phone, replayed the last 5 seconds of the recording, and held it close to his ear. He kept turning his head, slowly, mechanically, matching Rahul's final cry. Then I heard it, not from the phone, from behind Aaron. The same rattling, hollow breathing, right in the garage with us. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't want to turn around, but Aaron did. He turned toward the corner of the garage, the darkest part, where the fluorescent tube light didn't reach. He stared, and then whispered, "Got on him." My blood turned ice cold. Aaron wasn't calling it. He was repeating it, as if struck by the same thing that took Rahul. I grabbed his shoulder. "Aaron, snap out of it. Let's go." He didn't move. His eyes were fixed, unblinking. So I forced him out, dragging him by the arm, out of the garage, down the driveway, almost throwing him into my car. I locked the doors and floored the accelerator. But even as we drove away, even at full speed, I noticed something in the rearview mirror. The garage lights were flickering, on, off, almost like someone, or something, was walking beneath them, following us. 2 days passed. I didn't talk to Aaron. I didn't sleep either. On the 3rd day, his mother called me, crying. Aaron wasn't eating, wasn't leaving his room, wasn't speaking. All he kept saying was, "Don't let it inside." I went to his house, even though I didn't want to. His room was pitch dark, curtains drawn, lights off, no sound, except the rattling breath. And it wasn't human. I pushed the door open. Aaron was sitting in the corner, hugging his legs, rocking back and forth. His phone screen lit his face. He had the same recording playing, on loop. Every time Rahul whispered Gaanam, Aaron whispered it too. And then I saw something on the wall behind him. Scratches. Deep finger scratches. Almost like someone tried to carve words into the paint. One word. Gaanam. But that wasn't the terrifying part. These scratches weren't carved horizontally. They were carved vertically, as if someone had been dragged up the wall. I couldn't stay in that room. I pulled Aaron out and took him straight to the hospital. He refused to speak, except one sentence, repeated over and over. It came from the fire. It wants to finish the last person who heard the recording. I didn't understand until the doctor asked, why you hear that recording too? I didn't answer, because in that moment, I heard the breathing again, right behind me. I left the hospital in a panic, got in my car, locked the doors, but the sound followed, not outside the car, inside. I looked at the dashboard. My phone, which I had thrown onto the seat, suddenly lit up. The recording was still open, but something was different. A final 2 seconds had appeared, something we hadn't heard before. A voice, broken, desperate, whispering, "If you're hearing this, it's already with you. Then run." And after that, a faint echo of the same word, Gaanam, not from the phone, from the backseat. If you're listening to this right now, remember one thing. Some recordings are never meant to be found. Some stories should have stayed buried in the ashes. But you're here. You made it till the end. Just be careful tonight, because they say the ones who hear these voices sometimes hear them again in the silence. If you want more disturbing true horror stories like this, hit the subscribe button and become part of our growing family here in the darkness. This is Dark Vision signing off. Sleep if you can.